One exhibition down, and the Tar Heels finally got to face someone in a different jersey this past week. A trip to Provo brought a few answers, but also probably raised up a few new questions as well. But that's what October basketball is for. Yeah. Tonight we'll hit the quick takeaways from the tune-up at BYU and shift gears into something I think will be a little bit more fun. It's our preseason prediction show. I've been saying not your usual prediction show. We'll find out who's going to lead the team in minutes, who's going to surprise us, and who ends up with the most meme-worthy moment by March. Sean Moran is here. Sherrell McMillan is here. Evan Rogers, the best hair at IC, is here. I'm Joey Powell. This is the Coast to Coast from inside Carolina. We're brought to you by Johnny T-Shirt. What's happening, everybody? We're glad that you have joined us this evening. If you're joining us live here on Inside Carolina's YouTube channel, as I mentioned, I'm Joey Powell, Sherrell McMillan, Sean Moran, my usual two main heavies. But also Evan Rogers has joined us, stepping straight out of a PERT commercial to be a part of this here prediction show tonight. But before we get into the predictions, I'm going to caveat again. This was October basketball. Sherrell and Sean and I and Justin shared our thoughts about this in the last episode of the show. Going to go ahead and get out there to, hey, let's try to ease up. Let's not necessarily add a lot of stock, either good or bad, into what used to be exhibitions against Midnight Oil and Athletes in Action, and now they're officially playing top 10 teams on television. But I digress. Let's talk about the loss by 2 at BYU. Because Sherrell McMillan doesn't believe in these things, we're not going to ask him for his quick takeaways. But Sean, give me your best and your worst from the BYU game.
First off, we'll give a shout out to Clarence from Salt Lake City, who was chatting me up before the game, and a longtime listener, along with a few other people that were getting there 90 minutes before the game. But always good to talk to Tar Heel fans when you're out and about.
Did you find out if Clarence's parents have a real good marriage? Did you confirm that?
I did find out he went to the 1969 Final Four with Bird and Magic.
Dear Lord. All right, please continue.
Pretty impressive. In terms of some, I'd say, intangible things, a few things that I liked. Luka obviously didn't play, but during timeouts, you could see him engaged and coaching some of the guys up, Jaren and others, as they came out of the game. So it was nice to see his interaction with the team. On the court, Derek Dixon, in terms of, I think we talked about it last time, how are they going to be at the free throw line when they get fouled? What's the camaraderie going to be like? And he was probably the most vocal on the team. And when going into huddles, he was the one leading the charge in terms of talking and getting the team prep. So, a lot to like from him. And then also like seeing Sean May. He was pretty vocal in the timeouts, but when the bigs, anywhere from Henry, Caleb, Zayden, came out of the game, he was talking them up and, kind of giving them pointers. So nice seeing some of those things that you don't always catch on camera. I'd say in terms of the game itself, a lot to like, a lot to maybe not be concerned with, but to think through. Dixon, really strong, so liked his engagement. The Evans, Vasar, or just Vasar and pick and rolls, which we've talked about a lot. I think we saw a few in the second half where he caught it on the left side and went up against BYU's big. And then when they needed a basket in the final minutes, probably the quickest play they had all game, the Evans to Henry down the middle pick and roll. So that was really encouraging, that some of the camaraderie they've developed. Defensively, I thought Stevenson did a solid job on DeBansta, which is definitely not an easy cover by any means, but 2 rebounds by him. I think it showed how strong they are on the offensive glass with Vasar and Wilson, but defensively, if they're going to play big, definitely need some others to step up, because that was a problem. And then, right now without Luka, they went, or I'd say with Luka, probably going to go 7 deep. And I think it's really going to be on Powell to make sure that he can carve out a spot defensively, and that he can be counted on, to really add a little depth in terms of getting to 8, adding some shooting. Because I think we saw without, if this was a team that they had gone into without getting Luka late in the summer, 3-point shooting would have been hard to come by. I think Luka can help that. Same with Powell. Evans found him in that left corner for his lone basket, but I think his ability to get the coaching staff to trust him will go a long way. So I could probably go on for a while, but I thought overall it was good just to see them in action. Some guys they're probably not going to see with Dybansta and some of the skill and athleticism, but overall I thought they did well. Last 4 minutes a little concern, even though it is so early, but just more of a theme from last year of kind of getting to that moment but not having the plays to finish it. So I think this team certainly won't be as frustrating as last year's. There's a lot to like, but I think the more that they can get in rhythm around the play calls, both offensively and defensively, as well as identifying roles as they go forward, will kind of determine the team's ceiling.
Good stuff from Sean there. Evan, outside of just having amazing lettuce, won't you tell us what you thought about the tilt out in Salt Lake City?
I think the big thing that I took away with it was the play of the freshman. Sean kind of hit on Dixon's play and how steady he was. I thought, honestly, in an exhibition setting, when Kine picked up those 2 early fouls, that was maybe one of the best things that could have happened for UNC in this type of game, just so that you were forced to throw out a guy like Dixon in extended minutes. It's tough in these settings, like we all talked about, just how much can you really glean from them. So just for fun, I went back and looked at the Memphis exhibition to kind of see how did guys like Drake Powell and Ian Jackson fare in those kinds of games. And they looked like, freshmen playing in October in those kinds of outings. Jackson didn't even make a field goal, and obviously he went on to be UNC's second leading scorer last year. So it's tough to nail down concrete things from these kinds of outings, but I thought Dixon's just overall comfort level, I thought was really impressive. Obviously we've talked about and have heard just how mature he plays and how steady he's been over the summer, but to actually see it on a court against a BYU team that has, some really talented guard play. I mean, Rob Wright was, one of the top transfer portal guys at the guard position. And then Caleb Wilson, obviously it speaks for itself, being the leading scorer and grabbing 10 rebounds, but just his overall activity, I think, is what impressed me the most. It never felt like en route to scoring 22 points that he really forced the action maybe more than once or twice down the stretch. He really kind of just played within himself, knew who he was as a player, and I think that's impressive for a kid that, is in October. I mean, it's easy to see a freshman of that caliber kind of force the action, especially in your first public showing against another team, and it never felt like Caleb really did that. So I think overall it's a lot of positives. I mean, you had 2 freshmen that I think UNC is going to depend on heavily. Obviously, Caleb more so than Dixon, but I think Dixon more than well proved himself that he can be a viable option, as that backup ball handler for Carolina.
Yeah, it's crazy. I want to reiterate our caveats in the sense that it's October. It's the first time they've seen anybody who doesn't wear the same practice uniform that they wear. So I feel like anybody who wanted to see bad things is going to see bad things. Anybody that wants to see good things is going to see good things. But I think there's a little bit of both to take away from there, and I think you guys did a good job of laying that out. I just want to reiterate to folks, like, if you're trying to necessarily use the game on Friday as causation for how the rest of the season is going to go, I don't understand that logic. I don't understand why you have to make a statement about what a 2-point exhibition loss against BYU is going to mean for the rest of the year. But I understand people's desire to want to do that. Like, I don't know. I would say for the purposes of this show, we're probably not going to put a ton of stock into it, because I think however you believed coming into the season about what this team's going to do, you probably found some things to reinforce that, either good or bad. But I do think there's plenty different if you want to compare. And I love that you watched the Memphis exhibition from last year, Evan. That's pretty stout. Speaking of shout outs, yeah, I know Sean gave a shout out to his friend Clarence. I would like to shout out Norma, who came up and spoke to my son and I. We were out eating at a local burger spot recently. But I also would be remiss if I didn't give some special love to our guy, Sam Fortenberry on X, formerly known as Twitter, who clearly loves the show, which we wholeheartedly appreciate. But after my Sade reference for Derek Dixon last week, he actually did an AI generated image of Derek Dixon as Sade. And it might be one of the most hilariously scary and stomach turning images that I've ever seen in my life. But I love the thought that went into that. So I want to give a shout out to Sam for pulling that off. I want to make a quick note about the Lucas situation. I know there's some stuff that popped up at Hubert Davis's media availability middle of last week about Luka now looking at why he's not playing and what they're trying to work out at this point. I know you guys want to hear about it. We're hoping to have something up very soon, if not tonight, tomorrow. But Sherrell and Ben are working on something, so just hang tight. There's not a ton of information out there, so just know that those guys are digging as hard as they can to get you guys a good answer, so that hopefully you'll understand what's going on. But yeah, I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it. I was refreshed, and not that anybody cares about my opinion, but I thought it was nice to be able to watch UNC play basketball with no pressure. Because if you remember late last season, it just felt like every single game was a referendum on, are they good? Are they bad? Are they good? Are they bad? And so it was really nice to be able to watch something even in October against another quality team, and BYU has some pieces. So that was really refreshing. Speaking of refreshing, Johnny T-shirt, you need to refresh your wardrobe. Hubert Davis refreshed the roster with so many new bodies. You need to refresh your wardrobe. Stop wearing your stank old ratty hoodie that doesn't fit anymore, has 4-year-old barbecue stains on them. Get rid of that. Fix this. Get yourself some new gear from Johnny T-shirt. If you are a premium subscriber to Inside Carolina, first off, if you're not, remedy that real quick. But if you're a premium subscriber to Inside Carolina, go to the message boards on the premium boards and find that code. You can use that code for an extra 10% off of what Johnny T-shirt is already going to offer you at incredibly low, like market leading competitive type prices. Check them out. We want you to support them. They've been big supporters of IC for a long time. And we want you guys to have the same great relationship with them that we do. So Johnny T-shirt, supporters of this here show, we're grateful for them. We want you guys to be grateful for them as well. Oh, and I just got a little note from a little bird. Sherrell has a takeaway that he'd like to share, guys. Apparently the game that did not exist, that shall not be mentioned, indeed does exist, and Sherrell would like to make a mention of it. So, Mr. McMillan, I turn the floor over to you, sir, if only briefly.
Yeah, it was just one play, I thought, and I guess I don't remember when it was, to be honest. I was half asleep. But Caleb Wilson defensively, and I think I texted a few people and was just like, this is pretty stunning. He was on the kind of on the right side of the floor, and just was able to, there's video of it now, was able to recover about 3 or 4 times. He was essentially guarding 2 people, it felt like. There was a pass to the left, there was a pass to the right. He recovered. I think the bandstick got the ball, drove to the middle, he blocked his shot. I mean, it was just a masterclass of about 15 seconds of defense. So I think from that, you can take that he does have the lateral quickness, he does have the instincts, and then he finished the play with a block. So you can see the massive defensive potential that he has from just that one particular play. And like I said, I think a few scouts have kind of highlighted it. So if you can go find it, it really is something to watch.
See, was that hard? That was good. You did a good job. It was a nice little drive by you did there. And I agree with what you said about Wilson too. I was surprised at how much he is able to stay connected with the rest of his teammates on defense, even as he's making aggressive athletic plays. All right, boys, what do you say we talk about some preseason stuff? Have some predictions. Let's go ahead and get some things out there that we know will be completely wrong by January. How y'all feel about that? Good? Yeah? No? We're going to do this a little bit different. We're not going to do the obvious things for a preseason game. I think, there might be some other shows you can get out there where people are going to do the, who gets the most points. And, we're going to do some things similar to that. But what we did is we took some suggestions from you guys, our listeners and viewers, off the boards and tried to put together a decent show here. But I didn't want to do straight up record and who's going to be this and who's going to be that. We're going to dance around that a little bit and try to spice things up for you. So since we've now given you guys the kind of the context of how we're going to do this, first things first, shout out to Tommy because he surmised that this team is going to have 31 regular season games. So we're going to build our predictions based off of that number. If that number's wrong, then go ahead and hit Tommy up at Tommy Ashley at T Ashley IC and let him know that his numbers are wrong. But that's what we're working on for the purposes of this here show. So let's start there. Evan, as the resident guest, not a stranger, but a guest, I'll let you go first on what you think this team's record is going to be as they play 31 regular season games. Again, no postseason stuff, just regular season games.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking through this. Split up non-conference and then obviously the ACC conference play. And this is a different non-conference schedule than I think UNC's had under Hubert Davis, and I think it could be a benefit for them, later down the road. Like, you look at last year, we talked about the gauntlet where you had like a Florida and then, you had an Alabama, and it just kind of piled on top of each other. This year, it's really just 4 games in the non-conference. It's the Kansas home game, it's the Michigan State, Ohio State, and then the Kentucky game. I think UNC would probably go 2-2 in those kinds of games. I think that would be a success. I think you would love better than that, but I'm going to kind of play conservative and go 2-2. So you kind of have 2 losses in the non-conference play, and then considering ACC play is a 20-game slate, where you've got 2 games against Duke, 2 games against Syracuse, 1 game against everyone else. I factored that out into my head at about 5 to 6 ACC conference losses. They had 7 ACC losses last year. I think they'll be a little bit better. So I would say anywhere between 7 to 8 losses. So you're looking at a 24-7 or a 23-8. I'll go 24-7. I won't cheat and give 2.
Oh, good for you for actually owning a prediction. 24-7 for Evan. Sean, same thing. Give me a number on how you think this team, just straight up wins and losses, are going to go.
So straight up, I'm looking at 23-8. So similar to Hubert Davis's first year. Evan mentioned the non-conference where you look at it and they should have 8 for sure wins, 9 if you're looking at Georgetown at home, and then so you got 4 games to figure out. And I think 2-2. Kentucky is going to be the hardest one on the road with a team that is really talented, which then once again I think does put a lot of pressure on the team with only 4. I think the ACC will be a little better, right, from a Q1 type of standpoint, but with only 4 games, it does put a lot of pressure on the team, especially that Kansas game. So I do think looking at that in 2-2, and then adding in 6 losses in ACC, I guess you did that 23-8. But I think in terms of how that 23-8 is made up, I think it's made up where not every game at the end is going to have to be a win in terms of what we've seen last year and Hubert Davis's first year. So I think they should have some more quality wins earlier on. And then, I think with the ACC being stronger, as well as the unbalanced scheduling, for instance, at UVA, you don't get UVA at home, having Louisville at home, you're not going on the road. So, I think six losses where there's going to be 1 or 2 upsets in there as well. But that's what I'm going with. So I feel that's a fairly safe answer. We'll see if Sherrell blows it out one way or the other.
That's a very Sean answer, and I love you for it. Sherrell, same thing, man.
It's funny when you first asked this, I said, 23-8. That's probably a good middle ground. And I think that's right. I probably would skew maybe 23-8 back to like 21-10 between those 2 places, just because I do think even though the schedule isn't what it was like last year, like Evan said, I mean, Ohio State still has a lot of talent. Michigan State is going to be a talented team. You still have Duke twice, even though you have them at home, you still have Louisville, who's ranked higher than North Carolina in the preseason. Virginia, who isn't ranked for some reason. I don't think we really understand that. NC State has a revamped roster and is going to be excited, and you only play them once, and it's at NC State. So I think some losses are going to happen, but I do think the team overall, I think, will be a better unit than last year, even if the record is not similar, but pretty close. So I would say 23-8. If you can get 2 of those 4, like Evan said, big games, that puts you in pretty solid standing from a Q1 and all the metric standpoint. And then it's just a matter of going through your ACC schedule, which, as Sean said, is manageable. So I think we're all kind of in agreement. I would say anywhere between 21-10 and 23-8.
I'll go 25-6 just to be a jerk, but I do want to give some love to Wesley in the chat, who said he said North Carolina is 40-1 with the one loss being to Georgia Tech, which is the most UNC basketball thing ever.
Well, yeah, and they go to Atlanta, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, until they win there, I'm just going to assume they're going to lose there in every single sport for
Yeah.
the rest of time. So that's one of those conference losses that you can go ahead and pencil in.
39-1 from Wesley Carson in the chat. I love the recognition that Atlanta, specifically that arena, that dimly, poorly lit, dank arena, is just the bane of UNC's existence. It's a house of horrors, and I know that's been used multiple times to talk about this. So, guys, let's get into some individual stuff. One of the things that was fascinating, and I think we all looked at it, or looked forward to it when it happened in Salt Lake City, was who plays when, how Hubert Davis used his lineup, who got the call in this situation. To coin one of old Sherrell's phrases he likes to use, thinking about who's already got his trust, right? Who do you think the minutes per game leader is going to be for this team? And I wanted to use minutes per game because I think that sometimes can be more telling than than who starts or et cetera, et cetera. So minutes per game. Sherrell, I'll snake this and go right back to you. Who's going to be the minutes per game leader for this team?
Seth Trimble. Next question.
Yeah, you can't answer Seth Trimble to every question, but I don't think that's bad. Evan, same thing to you, man.
Yeah, I thought maybe Vasar, considering the depth behind him, but I think he might have games where he deals with some foul trouble just because of the nature of the position. So I think Seth Trimble as well. Just his defensive versatility. I think his rebounding is going to be another key aspect you kind of saw against BYU. They kind of struggle rebounding physicality-wise at the forward position, and Seth can offer that at the guard position.
It's funny you mentioned Vasar because I think he played like 33 minutes, and part of that was because James Brown and Zayden High looked out of their depth, at least in that contest. But Sean, are you going with Trimble too, or should we just move on to the next thing?
I'll shake it up. I'll go Vasar. I could see between foul trouble or potentially getting winded, why that wouldn't happen. But they're going to need him on the court from that offensive perspective until somebody can prove something at the 5 behind him. Seth Trimble is going to play a lot, and shout out to him for his defense on DeBansta. Like DeBansta wanted no part of him anytime he got matched up on from that first possession where he got the ball swiped. And I think with that presence, but at the same time, if they need shooting or need something, I could see them doing some other lineups. So I'll throw out Vasar, just given his importance to the team and the lack of front court depth behind him.
Yeah, I'm going to say Seth too, but I think the Vasar one is, whew, man, it's just it shocked me to see him get as many minutes as he did in one snapshot of a contest. But I do think that the safe play there is Seth, and I'll be as adamant as Sherrell was about it. Moving on, next question we want to talk about, who's the 3-point makes leader? I didn't go percentage. I didn't go 3-point shooting. I went with makes. Who's going to be the 3-point makes leader for this team? Sean, you're up.
Good question. I'm going to go Luka with that, assuming that he's playing all the games. I think there is some, in terms of how he slots in his minutes, just given the flexibility of that 2 through 4 will be one thing. I think Kyan is going to be right up there, but I think at the beginning of the season, as we saw against BYU, his role on the ball is going to be much different than last year. So that's why I think it's still going to take a while for him to work in as to how he's getting those catch and shoot 3-pointers versus being able to be fed from Kyan in Luka once he gets on the court.
So you're going with Luka, but you gave reasons for somebody else.
No, I'm saying that's those reasons were why I'm not taking Kai.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. Evan, same question, man. Who's the 3-point makes leader for the squad?
Yeah, same answer. Luka Bogovac, considering he plays full season, and then Kai Evans. I could see it being a possibility, but yeah, he's adapting to, like Sean said, being more on the ball than off the ball shooting wise.
Wow, did not expect that. All right, Sherrell, you going the same way? I swear to God, if you guys all three give the same answer, 2 questions in, I might literally, chew on a pair of vice grips. Sherrell, what do you got?
I was going to, but I don't want to see you or hear you chew on a pair of vice grips. So I will go with Kai Evans. There's a scenario where, he becomes the starting point guard. He plays a lot, and we did see some different things, I think, from Hubert Davis. Hopefully Trevor can break that down offensively in the scrimmage. And I think their hope is that he'll get more open looks and we'll knock him down. So I'll go with Kai Evans, be different. But I really do think it's probably going to be Luka, because from what we've seen of him and what we heard of him, he likes to shoot. And he is a shooter who has confidence that every shot's going to go in, and those are the types who are going to, keep putting them up. So I'll go with Kai Evans to be different, but I think Bogovac will be right there too.
One of the lineups I could see at some points during the year, if you put Dixon at the 1, move Evans off the ball, and you still have Trimble in there at the 3, that's where I think Evans can potentially shine and get Sherrell the W for that question. So interested to see how and if that lineup is utilized.
Sean, are you suggesting that they go back to a 3-guard lineup this season?
Well, they have a lot of options, and given Trimble's ability to play a lot bigger, add the fact that Dixon's also big, I think we can see it as they try to figure that out. We saw Jaren at the 3 this time, so I wouldn't be surprised if Dixon sat the last 4 minutes of crunch time, and I think he's going to force himself onto the floor during the season.
That's Sean's heart beating really fast. That was his heart beating really fast because he had to answer that quickly turned question by Sherrell. I love the way you're on your toes there, man. Okay, rebound leader. It's always been a point of emphasis for North Carolina. They do have better height this year, as we have said before and have talked about online and off. Tall doesn't necessarily mean you get a lot of rebounds. It gives you a better chance to get a lot of rebounds. But if you're tall and that's all, and you're not really attacking the glass, or you're out of you're out of position all the time, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a lot of rebounds. So, who's going to lead this team in rebounds and hopefully get them back in a place where rebounding is kind of paramount for the squad's identity? Evan, you're up.
I don't want to read too much into the exhibition, but I really do think Vesar is going to be forced to play a lot of minutes just because of the 5 depth, and I think he's going to lead the team in rebounding. I would have thought before the exhibition it would have been Caleb Wilson, but I think, granted, even though Caleb Wilson showed really good activity, like I'd mentioned earlier, on the glass and just in general, I think Vesar is going to just be forced out to play a lot more minutes than Caleb. So I think there's a world where Vesar leads this team in rebounding.
Man, a lot of folks in the chat tonight, big fans of Caleb Wilson as the rebounding leader, and I could see it. Sherrell, what say you?
With the people in the chat, I think it'll be Caleb Wilson just because of his activity and his athleticism. And I think he's a more instinctual / natural rebounder than Vesar. Not that Vesar is not going to have a good amount of rebounds, but I could see something. I don't think either of them are going to have a ton, but I could see something where Wilson's at like 6.8 and Vesar's at like 6.7 or something like that. They're going to cannibalize each other a little bit. And then I think UNC's hope is that there's not as many offensive rebounds to be had because they're shooting at a higher percentage. So that factors in too. And Henry is a really good offensive rebounder.
All right, Sean.
I'm going to go with Henry, even though I think people in the chat, strong offensive rebounder, we've talked about from a defensive perspective, and I think you saw it in terms of he can go up with that length, but he's not going to move somebody out of the way where Wilson might be more aggressive. But I just like the length to go with the minutes that he's going to play and the consistency. So would put him at 7.5 over the season.
Hey, Joey, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, man.
Wesley Carson in the chat, I think that's a great point. He said, Wilson's personality makes me think that if he's challenged to rebound, then he's going to rebound. And that's definitely a situation where if Hubert Davis says, look, man, the team needs you to get 9.5 rebounds a game, I think Caleb has the mindset and the ability to go do it.
I could see that too. I mean, he also seems like he's the one that, not that he needs motivation, but yeah, I think kind of what Wesley's saying. It's one of those things where you kind of take something to him and question his moxie or question his mettle, and he might decide to ratchet things up a little bit. Will be absolutely fascinating to see if he's able to do that. Because I think if he's leading the team in rebounding, I think it's a great sign, because he's using his athleticism. But I would love to see a couple of guys close there. One of the things about that team with Ingram and Cormac Ryan on it were, man, I feel like they had a bunch of dudes that could get to the glass. So I think that might need to be UNC's plan, is just, man, get everybody to the glass however you can do it. All right, assist leader. Now, we saw some good assists from all the guys that played in this one exhibition so far, and I think we're all expecting, since it's not a typical point guard position, that this might be different. The assists per game might not necessarily be one guy getting, double figure assists, but I do think it's probably going to be a close race. Sean, who's going to lead this team in assists? And bonus points if you can give me a number.
Kyan Evans at 4.8 assists per game. So we'll be taking a step down from Cadeau, but just in terms of the time that he does have the ball, the time that he has the ball in his hands, I think he has good vision. That was shown when he was leading the fast break, and his eyes kind of led Powell to that wing spot, and he got him a open look. But once again, I think from this team, they're going to need Kyan to score. They're going to need him to shoot. So that's why I'm not going over 5. And hopefully Vesar, as we've talked about a lot, can alleviate some of that playmaking from the pick and rolls or a high post.
Yeah, he flashed that pocket pass to Vesar a couple of times, and North Carolina can do that. Whew, that changes a lot of things for this offense. Sherrell, who's the assist per game leader?
I'm inclined to go with Kyan Evans as well. Just again, the hope for UNC is that he's on the court a lot because he's such a good shooter. But I think it's going to be a low number. There was a stretch there where I don't think anybody averaged over 4 assists a game until Cadeau came. There was a stretch between Pinson and RJ Davis and Caleb Love's last year where no one averaged like more than, I think it was like 4.2 or something a game. So I think it'll be that kind of situation where you probably have Evans at 4.4 or something, and then you have Dixon at 4.1, and you have Vesar at 2.7, and something. It'll be a situation like that. I know this isn't the over-under show, but after Evans done, I have a question for y'all about assists. Joey said something. Over/under 0.5 games where a UNC player has 10 or more assists. 0.5.
Under.
Over.
Under.
I'm just going over just because I knew you guys were going to go under, and I feel like it's
Under, yeah.
I'm going to be the contrarian in the room, but I like the thought, and I do think it's, if UNC has somebody go one day, that's I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Moving on, since we're talking about assists, let's talk about turnovers. Who's gonna lead this team in turnovers per game? And I will say, I don't necessarily think that it has to be that turnovers are a bad thing. I think that there could be a situation where, they're turnovers of aggression, not necessarily turnovers of stupidity. Because I think there have been times where North Carolina was awash with turnovers of dumb. I don't know that will be the thing with this team, but I'm certainly set up to be wrong. Like I said, half of these will be wrong in January, but we'll see. So who's gonna lead the team in turnovers? Evan, congratulations. You get to answer this one first.
I was laughing in the chat. Someone mentioned Zayden High just because he did have a rough. I think he had 5 against BYU, but
yeah, it was not a great night for Zayden.
Yeah, it wasn't. I think it's going to be Caleb Wilson. He's going to have the ball in his hands a good bit, I think, in terms of just the creation that he's going to be asked to do, and I think that could lead to some errant passes. And yeah, I think it'll be Caleb Wilson.
Did I get you for assist, Evan, or did I skip you?
I was going to say Kyan Evans. It was going to be boring anyways.
Okay. All right, thanks. All right.
I
Well,
would
sorry,
say
sorry that I
would-
missed you. I was
no,
I
no,
didn't
no.
mean to
I
overlook
was
you.
gonna. I would add though. I think to mix it around a little bit for the assist. I do think Henry Vasar is going to be the second leading assist man on this team. I think it's going to take some time, because I think once he and Caleb really do develop that high-low chemistry, I think that can work really well. That would be, I guess, something to mix it around a little bit in terms of assists per game.
Yeah, and I think there will be some opportunities too for some big to big passing to accentuate what you're saying about potentially with Vasar. All right, we already got Evans. Sherrell, who's your turnover per game leader? And if you say Elliot Cadeau, I'm going to call you really petty.
No, it works so well with what Evan said. I think it's going to be Vasar, because the best way to get him going, I think, is going to be getting him moving towards the basket. And just as a 7'1", really big guy, there's just going to be some times where a guard just comes in there and swipes the ball. Or as Evan said, if they're doing the high-low game, there's going to be an errant pass a game. If that happens 3 times, 3 turnovers a game, probably will lead the team, I would hope, if you're a UNC fan. So I'll go with Vasar for that reason. And then if you do put him on the block, I think there are times where he's going to be a little clumsy. It's not 100% natural for him. So I think he might get the ball stolen a few times that way. So I'll go with Vasar for those reasons.
I get the feeling he's going to get a lot of work with Sean May and keeping that ball up over his shoulders, especially when he does end up inside on the post. I loved his willingness and what we've seen so far from video, and then what we saw Friday of his willingness to go to that little jump hook. I think that might actually be one of his best friends if he starts getting into turnover trouble. Sean.
Well, just saying on Vasar, he's definitely going to have to cut down on the travels he had in the post. I think that was a little concerning with the footwork, especially, that's not his forte, but he's going to have a size advantage. So he's going to need a few of those easier baskets, or the team will need that. But we'll go with Luka on the wing. I think he'll have the ball in his hands a lot, potentially as a secondary ball handler. Just looking at a lot of his film last year, could make the easy pass, but struggled trying to make some challenging passes. And I could see him trying to maybe do a little too much, or be a little aggressive, or maybe have a little Euro flash in there. So I could see him having the ball in his hands a lot, but hopefully, what he might be doing from a turnover perspective is balanced out just from a scoring perspective. So I'm going to go Luka, even though I think Kyan's the favorite just with the ball in his hands so much.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, guys, let's get away from some of the individual stuff and start looking at some team things. What do you anticipate will be the best win for this squad this year? And again, no postseason, just talking about regular season stuff. Sean, we'll go to you.
I'm going to go Kansas to start the year, just because I'm putting a lot of stock in that game. If they lose that one, then we're just going to be right back where we've been the last few years of needing all these Q1 wins in the offseason going into the regular season. So putting Kansas on there, and then I know you'll get mad, Joey, but I'm going to say Louisville at the end of the regular season, where Louisville comes in and UNC just puts it together and has one of those 20-point wins against a solid team.
So you're picking two. You can't just follow the rules.
1A and 1B.
You can't just follow the rules, man. I'm not asking for a lot here. All right, Sherrell, give me one game that will be this team's best win this season.
February 7th in the Smith Center when Duke comes to town.
All right. Fair enough. Is that because you think it's going to be a margin of victory? You think it's going to be an emotional thing, or do you think Duke's going to be that good?
I think Duke's going to be solid. I think UNC, considering how last year went and the way they lost to them those 3 times, I think there's going to be added emphasis on that game. Kind of a Kansas game in February, and the Carolina Duke game is always exciting and always has something new. And I think that Carolina actually is a decent matchup just early on, just looking at numbers and size and who does what well. So I think that will make it a really important game for UNC. And then, you have to consider that last year, I think, they had 2 home Q1 chances. I think one was Alabama and the other one was Duke. So it's always big because Duke is always going to be good. And if you can beat them at home, that's a feather in your cap.
Will allow. Evan, what do you got, man? Best win.
I'm going to mix it up because my initial answer was taken I'll go at Duke to end the year. I think it's pretty hot. But like Sherrell mentioned, I actually do think last year's Duke team and obviously last year's UNC team, it was a comical nightmare in terms of just the size. I mean, you saw the Seth Trimble Cooper Flag experiment and just UNC being, I think they were the second shortest team in Power 5 last year. So
Why are you going to bring up old stuff, bro?
I'm just right. But no, I think that it is a little bit better of a matchup this year in terms of. Actually, think UNC has an advantage in terms of just the wing and the guard play compared to what Duke has. I think the issue could be the bulk that Duke has in terms of down low. But I'll go hot. I'll mix it up and say that UNC steals one from Cameron Indoor to end the year.
All right, let's move on to the next one. We're going to go highs. Let's talk about some lows. Worst loss, and I'm actually going to jump in and start this one. The December 20th game at Ohio State to me feels like one where North Carolina would
neutral.
typically. Oh, okay. Well, it says at Ohio State on the schedule. So, thank you for squaring that up. Well, if that's not going to be it, then I'm going to say January 3rd at SMU, afternoon game, 2:00. Just those turn of the year when school's not in, around the holidays, just that might be the typical conference poop on the floor situation for UNC, because I feel like we've seen a lot of those if you've watched the team very long. That might be it for me. Is the worst loss might be the loss at SMU. I just feel like they're going to be due for a stinker at some point, and that part of the calendar really jumps out at me. All right, Evan, worst loss.
Yeah, Brandon in the chat took it. I think the game at Georgia Tech could be a sneaky letdown game. It's at the end of January. UNC's coming off a week-long break. They go from playing at UVA to at Georgia Tech a little Saturday to Saturday. And Georgia Tech is just kind of one of those ACC teams, with Damon Stoudemire. They kind of always just pesky in a way. They have Bayandongo back, so they have some athleticism in the front court. And I just could see that as being one of those. I know Sean mentioned earlier, like 1 or 2 upset losses that UNC could have in conference play. I could see that one being one where UNC slips up.
Sherrell, worst loss.
I hate to do this. I think the Kentucky game could get out of hand. I don't like the matchup. Kentucky has so much depth and talented depth. And going to that arena is never easy. And I worry that I don't say the moment is going to be too big for UNC, but you do worry about that. And it's like they really need to have a good showing against other top teams. So almost like if they were to upset, maybe not upset, if they were to beat Kansas, the second game of the season, you could almost undo that by having a really poor performance on national TV in a highly rated, highly sought after, highly watched game at Kentucky. And we've seen that in the previous years where, that kind of Thanksgiving swoon, like they have Michigan State. I'm not sure. Is there another game in the Fort Myers, or is it just those two that they play? But
St. Bonaventure.
Yeah, I got the Bonnies out there though.
So you go Bonnie's Wednesday, then you go Michigan State Thursday, 4 days off, and then you go to Rupp. So it could be a situation where, like, on December 5th, we're looking around like, man, what happened after the good Kansas win? So I'll say the Kentucky one.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a stretch at all for all of the things you just listed. Sean.
Gene Triplehorn in the chat took what I was thinking of, potentially the at Stanford, just given it's a Wednesday early road trip out to California.
Maybe a 1 a.m. tip or something like that.
Yeah, which usually I thought it would have been a Thursday, Saturday, but I'm going to go with Pittsburgh at home in February, just given the Capels and Pitt have had UNC's number for the most part, and losing at home to them again in February would not be great, to say the least.
Man, just gave a whole lot of people a lot of PTSD dropping that one out there. Let's get a little crazy here. Who do you guys anticipate will be the starting 5 on December the 30th? I asked that because that's going to be around the turn of the year when they start getting into conference play. I think that's actually the Florida State game. December 30th. That's a 7:00 night before New Year's Eve against Florida State, because everybody loves Everybody loves December conference games, but here we sit. I want to see who you guys think will be the starting lineup then. And so, Evan, I'll allow you to start, sir. Starting lineup when they have their first conference game hosting Florida State.
I was gonna see if I could find it. How many different starting lineups they had last year? Because there was a stretch there where it almost seemed like a different one every game. I mean,
Well, between injuries and trying to figure anything out, he shook it up pretty good.
Yeah, it was a lot of mixing and matching. Obviously, the one that a lot of people are mentioning in the chat, I think is one that I think people would expect. Basically you swap out Jaren for Luka from what they started in the exhibition game. I think I'll be a little different. I think the starting lineup will be the same one they had in the exhibition game with the Jaren, Wilson, and Vasar. I think maybe whether it's a Luka clearance issue or a Luka trying to still get adapted, or maybe UNC just wants to lean into its defense a little bit more. I think I'll go a little bit different and say the starting five you saw in Salt Lake City will be the one that they have December 30th.
All right, I'm not mad at it. Sherrell, starting five as of the Florida State game.
I still think it'll be the presumed starting five. Just switch out Luka for Stevenson. So Evans, Trimble, Bogovac, Wilson, and Vasar would be my assumption. I will answer your question though, Joey. Earlier, you said who's already earned Hubert Davis's trust. I think it's pretty clear from everything we heard that Jaren Stevenson has. Whether that is Hubert Davis hoping he can get something out of Jaren Stevenson that they didn't at Alabama, or that he's seen it in practice and thinks he's already gotten it out of him. Either way, he's definitely in the rotation. I think he's earned Hubert Davis's trust. So he might as well be considered the sixth man, I would say, at this point. Pretty much him and Dixon are right there.
Yeah, that's a great call. I do think it was kind of funny. You would get used to some Roy Williams teams and who he would put in and when he would put them in, kind of sixth and seventh man for a long time. And I think you might end up seeing something like that with Stevenson, especially if he's as much of a favored son as it seems to be. And who knows if Hubert Davis has gotten him to show some of the aggressiveness that we saw against again, one exhibition game. Maybe there's something to that. All right, Sean, who's your five, bro?
I think there's legs to
Wait a second. Wait. Stop. I just realized.
Yep.
I talked about the sixth and seventh man, and I didn't go 6'7".
Oh.
I didn't do that. My bad. All right, go ahead, Sean. I'm sorry. I had to get that in. It was very important for all of our middle school boy listeners. All right, go ahead, Sean.
I think 100% would have gone with Luka prior, but to what both Evan and Sherrell said and what we saw, I wouldn't be surprised if Jaren is at the three, which my feelings about him at the three. I think it does add length. It could almost be, if Luka were coming off the bench, offensive spark plug, just given some of the shooting challenges that the lineup does have. But I think you're going to have, by that point in time, you'll have Luka coming in and ideally Stevenson being first off for that 4-5 rotation. If not, Zayden High's coming in for Vasar, but ideally Stevenson can back up Wilson and then play other minutes at the three. But I think you need a strong offensive team early on. So I'll put Luka in that starting lineup.
So y'all, I want to, I don't mean this in a bad way, but folks should have realized that Stevenson was going to play some three. I know people might not have wanted it to happen, but our original reporting back in March was that they were considering Stevenson as a 3-4, 4-3 who could play some three. And that was one of the reasons they were, I don't want to say agnostic between him and I already forgot his name. The kid who went to Georgia from BYU. Yeah, between him and Catchings. That's kind of why they were a little agnostic, because they felt they had similar traits. So, even at practice, when IC went to practice, I don't know if you were there or not, Evan, but Stevenson was half with the bigs and half with the guards, which implies to me they see him as kind of a wing. So this has been the plan for some time. Whether or not the plan is going to be good or it's going to come to fruition positively, we'll see. But I think Hubert Davis and his staff have had this in mind for a good 6.5 months, honestly, with Steven playing some three. And, depending on the Luka situation, honestly, this is what the team was going to look like before Luka happened. After Stevenson committed back in, I guess it was April, it was kind of like, okay, this is no, seriously, this is they were kind of set, and it was like, Lubin was going to come back, and he was going to be the backup 5, and Stevenson was going to be the 3. They were going to go with a big lineup, and then Lubin decided to go elsewhere, and then more resources became available, and that's how the Bogovac stuff happened. But this was like the original plan before Luka became someone that they could get. So I think it's important to remember that.
So what does success look like to you for Stevenson to have that starting spot and keep it?
Oh, well, you see, you're asking me like I think it's the best
No,
move.
no.
I don't,
I'm just,
okay.
I have my answer. I would want him to be able to hit a 3. I don't need 2 threes. I like the drive he had where he attacked the basket straight. Would need to cut down on the turnovers, and if he can disrupt defensively with that size, I think that would be success. You don't need him averaging 12 and 6, but you can't have him with 5 turnovers and 2 rebounds either.
Yeah, I think turnovers are one. You don't want him. Very similar, honestly, to Jalen Withers.
Jalen Withers, thank you. Yeah,
a different player, but you don't want him handling the ball a ton. You don't want him making a bunch of decisions and reads off of different kinds of actions. You want reacting to going to grab a rebound. You want him to be able to hit an open 3. You want him to finish in transition and occasionally take advantage of a mismatch. Those are the things: high energy, effort, defensive versatility, open shots, that kind of stuff. I think if he's able to do that, that would be success. So, 35% from 3, 7 or 8 points a game, 4 rebounds a game, minimal turnovers, hit your free throws.
All right. Y'all give me my show back. We got a couple more things I want to hit before we get out of here, but I'm glad you guys got to chop that up. Okay. I want to make the last 4 kind of rapid fire. I don't think there needs to be a ton of explanation, but if you have something you feel like you got to get out here, you got to get it off your chest, you have the freedom to do so, and I trust you all for that. Any conference season superlatives from this roster, Sherrell?
Caleb Wilson, all defensive team.
All right. Evan?
Henry Vasar, all defensive team.
Woo! All right, Sean.
Henry Vasar, first team all ACC.
Man, look at you guys spicing it up. I like the different amalgamation of names that you guys threw out there. That was we even had 2 guys do one name and then separate awards. I like it. All right, ACC regular season finish. Same order, Sherrell.
Second.
Evan?
Second.
Sean?
Third.
All right. Trying to keep
second behind Louisville.
Look at you. All right. I can dig it. Okay. ACC tournament finish. And I'm not counting like the Tuesday, Wednesday game stuff. If you don't think they're going to win a Tuesday or Wednesday game, actually, no, that doesn't matter because you guys said they would all finish ahead of that. So Tuesday, Wednesday games are out. Where do you think they finish in the ACC tournament, Sherrell?
Just win the thing. They've won it 3 times in 20 years. Like, it's time for them to win it again.
Man, coming in hot. Evan?
Loss in the semifinals.
Loss in the semis. All right. So that would be a Friday loss. Sean?
Lost in the championship.
Lost in the championship. Man, you guys are all over the board. I'm feeling this. I wish I'd have done this quicker. Sooner in the show. All right. Finally, NCAA tournament finish. All right. There's a lot of different ways we can go here. I'm going to ask you guys, instead of saying where they end up in the NCAA tournament, I'm going to force you to give me a seed. And keep in mind, you guys all gave me your season predictions of 24-7, 23-8, 23-8 without any ACC tournament additions. So do the math in your head, but I want you to give me what seed you think UNC gets and how far they go in the tournament. Sherrell, go.
5.
Yeah, but how far are they going to go in the tournament? You said they get a 5 seed. How far are they going to
go? Second round loss.
All right. 5 and a second round loss. That would probably be to a 4 seed if my brain is right. Okay. Evan, same thing.
3 seed and Sweet 16.
All right. Look at that, getting to the second weekend. All right, Sean. If you say four seed and split the difference there, I might actually just come through the screen.
I'll go 6 seed and Elite 8.
Wow, 6 seed, but then turning it up when the actual lights come on. Okay, I see you working, man. Not too bad. Hey, shout out to all there's like 300 and some folks that joined us live tonight, and I'm looking at all these different variations of answers in the chat. That's actually fun. I may go back and read this when it posts on YouTube and see what the different responses were. But I love that all you guys have been so active tonight, fellas. Here's the wild card, and I'm going to leave with this. Based on the names that y'all had, the schedule and the wins that y'all gave. You guys each again said, I said 25-6, Evan said 24-7, Sean said 23-8, Rel said 23-8. Nobody had him getting farther than, I said Sean had the Elite 8. Who's the coach for North Carolina next year? Sherrell.
Dude, what is that? Like, what are you doing? Somebody who's really good at coaching basketball, who gets the job.
Okay, so you think they're going to have to make a change?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm not holding you to it. Look, man, I'm trying.
So I'll answer the question for real. I think there are two people who really know what it's going to take for a 6-year Hubert Davis.
Yeah.
And that's Lee Roberts. Well, 3 people: Lee Roberts, Bubba Cunningham, and Steve Newmark.
Yes.
And it's not like they're going to come out and be like, hey, this needs to happen for a 6-year of this group. But I think we'll know pretty quickly what type of team this is, which in turn will let us know kind of where things are headed. I don't think it'll be a situation where it gets to be March 4th and everybody's kind of like, oh, what's going to happen? I think we'll know one way or the other.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And again, this isn't like necessarily that I'm trying to get anybody fired. I'm just, it's an obvious question that's out there, especially coming off of last year's underwhelming exit. Go ahead, Evan.
The name I want to say it wouldn't happen. But this is I told Adam this like halfway through last year, and he blurted out loud in a very Mebane way just how crazy the idea was. But I'll say it. Nate Oates.
Sean, go ahead, Sean. Who's coaching North Carolina next year?
Well, I'll just say my guy Tomas Isalo from the Grizzlies, but going to stay Hubert Davis. I think the team is going to have, the 2 really poor years that UNC has had. It's been just the frustration of watching play. I think this team is going to play together, and there's going to be more consistency, which will leave a lot of the angst out from this season. But if they lose to Kansas and they lose some of those big games, it's going to be the bullseye is going to be there in December. But I do think, or I'm hoping that with a Vasar and the guys that they've brought, that the positives will outweigh the negatives or the concerns that everybody has. Yeah,
and I'll go ahead and say, I go ahead, Sherrell.
No, I was going to take it in a different direction, but go ahead.
I think just based on how much change has gone into this roster and the fact that they've seemingly upgraded at just about every position, and what we've been able to see early on from practices and how we think this team might gel, I think Hubert Davis is going to be here. I think this team's going to probably overperform this year. And again, I'm happy to be, I'm not happy, but fully expect that I may be wrong in January. But I think this team might actually surprise some folks. And when you've got a Seth Trimble as a veteran leader, and you've got some guys that already seem to be fairly bought in for all the things that we've mentioned earlier, I think this team might actually surprise some folks in a good way. Sherrell, go ahead, man.
I just wanted to get y'all's thoughts about like the Kansas game. I don't know if we're going to be together as a crew before that game. So not necessarily like basketball X's and O's wise, but what do you think happens if they lose that game? What will it be like in Chapel Hill? What will the sentiment be? And then, on the other side, if they win that game, how do you think you can propel them forward?
I'll say this: if they lose that game, it's going to be everybody who already thought Hubert Davis should be fired like 3 years ago it's going to be like they're the biggest feather in their cap that you could think of, right? And I think Kansas, they looked pretty good this past week in their exhibition, but I think it depends how. Sean, Evan, you guys have any thoughts about that?
I'll let Evan go first.
I think if they win, it could be very similar to the Tennessee win that UNC had 2 years ago with that team and how that kind of propelled them for the rest of the year. I mean, if they lose, UNC is going to be unranked in the second week of the season, and like you guys have mentioned, it's kind of just going to be the monkey on your back where you can't get the quality win and be back-to-back years with the loss to Alabama and then the loss to Kansas at home against a quality team. I think would be a bad look. But a win, I think, could propel them to reaching their ceiling. Throughout the whole year.
All right, Sean, last crack at it.
I think for this one, Kansas going to be very reliant on Peterson, who most likely will be the number 1 pick or number 2 pick. But I think that plays right up to Seth Trimble in terms of him being able to slow Peterson down. I'm putting a lot of stock in Kansas coming to the Dean Dome. I know UNC hasn't beaten them since Sean May's first year. Not that they've played every year, and a lot of those have been in the tournament, but they've got to get the monkey off their back at some point. And if they don't, which Kansas is a good team, so it's not going to be the end of the world. But I think for UNC basketball, the echo chamber is going to be significant. November is going to be extremely long. A lot of pressure on Michigan State, and even if they do get Michigan State, it's a Big Ten team. UNC has been able to beat Big Ten teams. They haven't been able to beat top teams outside of the Big Ten a lot. So that's why I say it's a must win early on. I think they can do it, especially with Trimble doing a good job on Peterson. But you have Bill Self, one of the best coaches. But I think it's another chance for Caleb Wilson to showcase his offensive and defensive versatility like he did the other night. And I just saw in the chat, if Jaren is on Darren, I think that can provide some length, but you don't want Jaren chasing. I think I just watched a few highlights of Peterson against Louisville running flare screens for him, and Jaren's just going to get lost too quickly on those. So hopefully it's only minimal possessions, and you have Seth locking him up.
All right, Sherrell, you had one parting shot before we get out of here. What is it?
Well, Sean answered it. I was going to say, our friend Tommy Ashley, every game for UNC football is a must win. So I was going to ask, is a season with 31 games, is the second game of the season in early November a must win? And Sean says yes. Evan, Joey?
You can look back 2 years ago where they didn't do well in the out of conference. They got a 1 seed, but I think just from UNC and all the questions around the coaching staff and this team, it is a must win, but it's not a death sentence if they lose in the second game in November.
I don't know that I would ever say a game before Thanksgiving, especially this early in November, is a must win. I just that's just how I'm wired. So maybe I'm not the right person to answer this.
I would say it is not a must win. This is going to sound weird. It's not a must win for the players, the UNC team. It could be a must win for Hubert Davis.
That's fair. I think it's a fair way to wrap it too. And again, just looking at what might become, if you really want to see this team excel, I think that game. Now, this is where I do think it might be a not must win, but absolutely opens the floodgates. If they have success against Kansas, then I think that immediately raises the ceiling on the season. Go ahead.
Yeah, and perception wise, when's the last time kids saw UNC beat a good team on national television? Was it the Duke game, the Cormac Ryan game? Was that the last time?
Probably.
So that's, I know for us, it didn't seem that long ago, but for a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old, that's ancient. That's ancient time.
That's 20% of his life.
Yeah. And then just the fact, they haven't beaten Kansas since, I was in college, since Sean was in college.
Yeah.
Evan was, probably in kindergarten.
Not born.
Yeah, not born.
Evan did not exist.
Right. So it's been a while, and I think Evan said it great. It's really important for Hubert Davis, and I think it's really important for the fan base just to have like something to hold on to.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw out the UNC Ohio State game with Greg Oden and that in terms of the atmosphere is going to be crazy. Kansas might be a better team in the long run, but I think UNC hopefully will pull through in the second half.
All right, let's wrap this. Y'all just got me really exhausted thinking about games in November having so much consequence. But as always, I'm really grateful for you guys and what y'all bring to the show. Y'all make this thing what it is, and y'all make this thing what everybody has come to expect. And it's why we're your favorite podcast. Guys, thank y'all so much. Evan, thanks for joining us. We hope that you'll do it again soon. Sherrell, Sean, you got to shout Tommy out. Didn't you want to shout out Tommy, Sherrell? No?
Oh, I did with the must win. That was
okay.
the Tommy.
Right.
Yeah, because every game's a must win.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Shout out to Tommy Ashley for producing tonight. I think he's filling in for Siegley, and to Johnny T-Shirt for sponsoring us and supporting us. But hey, for all of y'all who have made this a part of your regular podcast rotation, we sure are grateful for it. And we'll be back very soon because now the season really starts. There's an exhibition Wednesday and then real basketball. Holy Lord. We'll be back very, very soon. Thank you guys so much. If you have not liked, subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff. If you haven't subscribed to the IC YouTube channel, do that. We're like up over like 30,000 or close to 30,000, I think. So be a part of that. We'll be back very, very soon. Until next time, I'm Joey Powell. This has been the Coast to Coast podcast on Inside Carolina. Y'all take it easy.